Okay, hello, this is Leonard Davis from the Newport Beach Historical Society, and I am interviewing Mike Giddings, and you were a football coach at Newport Harbor High School.
That was my last, I guess you'd call it a real job. I was a volunteer for $1 a year so that I was insured, and probably as fun a way to end my coaching career. I started coaching in '57 at Monrovia High School.
Okay.
Had stints at Glendale College, University of Southern California, head coach at Utah, assistant with the 49ers in the NFL, and head coach and general manager of the World Football League Hawaii team. And my last real job in the NFL was with the Denver Broncos in '76. After which I started my current business, now run by my son. But
So what year did you come to Newport then?
well, I went to grammar school here through the 3rd grade.
Okay, so you were from a kid here, okay?
Yeah, and
So
then
you went across the bay over there,
I
right?
grew up on Balboa Island. Seymour Beak and I were best friends.
Okay.
Owns the ferry.
Just interviewed him a couple
Still
weeks ago.
doesn't give me a rate. We ride our bikes together every Monday, so we've known each other since childhood.
Okay.
My folks moved uptown when I was in the 4th grade, and I went to South Pasadena High School.
Okay.
My mom moved back to Newport when I graduated in '51. She came back here in June of '51.
And what high school did you go to there?
South Pasadena.
South Pasadena.
Actually, it was called South Pasadena San Marino in those days.
Yeah.
Both kind of like the old days when CDM and Newport
So
went.
where were you born originally?
I was born at St. Vincent's High School Hospital in Los Angeles.
Okay. So you're a native Californian. Okay.
Oh yeah, and I lived in South Pass for a couple of years.
So did your family have homes in both towns, or you?
No, we rented all the way. I was on Topaz. The box still there on Sapphire and Park on the island, and 318 Amethyst.
Okay.
We were at 3 different spots during the World War II, basically. And then we moved up to Narcissus Street in the Corona del Mar my last year here.
Okay.
I asked Dad, I said, I heard that you could buy a lot on the island for $100. Why are we renting? He says, because I can't afford $100 a lot. Can you imagine the people that bought a lot on Balboa Island in those days? But and so continue. My sister graduated from Newport Harbor. I have a younger sister. She graduated from Newport in '53. And my son graduated from Newport Harbor. I moved back here for good.
What year did your son graduate?
He's class, I believe, of '81.
Okay.
I moved back here when my last job was '76 with the Broncos.
Okay.
So I moved back to Newport for good in 1977. I had held on to a house I bought. I actually lived in Newport when I coached at SC.
Okay.
So I came back down to Newport in '62, left in '66, and came back in '77 to the house on Walnut Street in Newport Shores.
Okay. And then when did you begin coaching at Harbor High School?
I'm back 2 years, '77 and '78, and in '79 football season, they didn't have anybody to coach the 10th grade team.
Okay.
The sophomore coach decided that he would go back down and coach the freshmen.
Who was that?
Earl Byers.
I remember him. He was one of my PE teachers back then.
Okay, and
So I went there.
Hank Cochran was the head coach.
Okay. I don't remember him, but
Hank had just succeeded Bill Pizzica. Was Pizzica there when you were?
I remember Pizzica.
Okay.
Gage was, I think, the main coach when I was there.
Jules Gage,
Yeah,
sure. A lot of my buddies played. A lot of the guys I went to high school.
I graduated '71, so.
Okay, and then Hal Irwin was the coach there for a while.
Yeah, I didn't know him.
Well, Earl coached my son his sophomore year, and they won the league and had a good team, but the freshmen had not won a game. Freshman class was a little lean on players, especially linemen, and so nobody was available to coach the 10th graders. So the head of the boosters.
So the 10th grade coach went to do 9th grade.
He went back to 9th grade in 1979.
Okay.
And the head of the boosters was my son's best friend's dad, Jim Helfrich. And one day my son came home, he says, "Hey, Pop, would you be interested in coaching the 10th graders?" And my business, evaluating all the players in the NFL, is done off of game films. I don't have to travel. And I get the same films, not NFL films that you see on TV. I get the same film the coaches get. So I can do that anytime. I can do it at 2 in the night if I want, 2 in the morning. So I said, yeah, I'll go. That'd be fun. I said, let's go coach those kids. So I coached the sophomores for 3 years. And Hank Cochran was my son's coach. My son was most valuable player at Newport in 81.
Was he a sophomore that year?
He was no. I never coached my son. He was a junior in '79, senior in '80. So he's class of '81. Yeah, he was the most valuable player in the 1980 team.
Okay.
But they didn't win very many games. Hank didn't win very many games. The parents were upset, and there was a couple of vocal parents that thought their kids ought to all be playing at SC and UCLA, and Newport Harbor High School's turned out about, in its history, maybe 4 or 5 players that good that could play at USC. I had 2 of them, or 3 of them actually. So our last sophomore team in '81 went undefeated. I had a really good class. And I told Hank, the varsity coach, I said, I got about 3 players here in the 10th. They ought to be playing for you. He says, "Nah, you keep them because this is my last year."
So some of those sophomores that went undefeated, were they?
They became juniors first year.
Were they ones that were on the bad freshman team in the year or so before?
No, that's two classes removed.
Okay, so
the bad freshman team, we went 5-4.
Yeah.
We beat Edison. We're the last. Well, I don't know if you remember Edison High in the late '70s and early '80s. They were a power. The class we beat in '79 had a guy named Frank Sauer, ended up being a quarterback at Kansas and in the NFL. A couple guys. That's the only game those kids lost in 4 years at Edison. Yeah. So that was our big accomplishment the first year. The second year I had a little bit better talent. Same record, 5-4. We're in the Sunset League with Edison and Fountain Valley and Huntington Beach, and Newport's enrollment had really gone down. So my last sophomore team, we actually moved down a league to the Seaview, which gave us a better chance. But my last sophomore team could have beat anybody. I had a running back, a 10th grade running back that weighed 220. And I had some really good linemen and so forth. So when I moved up to the varsity, my undefeated sophomore team were juniors. My second sophomore team were seniors.
So you got to coach them again then?
I had, yeah. And the kids that didn't win any game as freshmen had graduated. Yeah. I'm trying to remember any of my freshmen. I don't believe any of my sophomores started as juniors and seniors for Newport. One did. Yeah, Rob Berry. We had a receiver named Rob Berry, very good. Another receiver named John Barnett, and a quarterback named Eddie Ashen. and that was it. We did there one, but they were great kids, and somehow we won 5 games. But my next 2 teams, the best player on my second sophomore team was Dave Cadigan, was an All-American at SC and played 9 years in the NFL. And then my undefeated sophomore team had 4 kids that played Division I football, from Illinois to UCLA to Boise State to Arizona. So whatever good record I had is attributed to the players. As anybody who is in coaching knows, if you have players, you win. The previous coach didn't have them, I had them. So we won the league, or tied for, we either won the league or tied for first all 4 years, 82 through 85.
Now, when you get, okay, I know the college, they go around the country recruiting people. Were you able to recruit many people, or you just kind of had to take what you got? Or
at Newport?
Yeah.
Oh no, just take what you got.
Yeah.
I don't believe in the recruiting high school.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Okay.
I don't like the fact that the Catholic schools are doing all the winning because they recruit. They actually give scholarships. Mm-hmm. I don't like it. I think kids ought to play with who they grew up with. When I was at Newport, I only lost 1 player to modern day. Mm-hmm. And but I also, there's 2 sides to that story. Mm-hmm. Not at Newport and Corona del Mar. We have real good teachers here, but a lot of public schools, frankly, the teaching. That's why parents. My daughter sent all her kids to Catholic schools. She married a Catholic kid. I'm not Catholic, but they live in Elk Grove, and the public school system there, compared to Jesuit High, where her son went, is just night and day. So there's 2 sides to the story, yeah. And I don't want to be. I believe I like the way the Catholic schools teach. I like their discipline. I like they teach American history as it is. By the same token, I think kids grow up in a neighborhood. I think they ought to play in a neighborhood, and that's why CDM's been good lately. Mm-hmm. The year that Matt Barkley from CDM was at Mater Dei, and he got a scholarship to SC. He's from Corona del Mar, and 3 other kids. There were 4 starters mm-hmm. on the Mater Dei football team that would have started at Corona del Mar. Some coach came in, I don't know if it's the current one, I think there's two coaches back at CDM, and he kept those kids home. And CDM won 40 straight league games. Only beat me once.
So how long were you the varsity coach?
4 years.
4 years.
And basically what happened was that my business, which is evaluating players after they get to the NFL, suddenly and I don't know what you want to call us, consultants or whatever, but we evaluate all the players and all the teams mm-hmm. and what the players are worth. Well, suddenly a name called free agency came into the NFL in the mid-'80s. The word free is a complete misnomer, but it basically said that a player could play out his contract or end his contract after 4 years and become a, quote, free agent and make a lot more money by moving. Mm-hmm. So my business, as you can see, became the decisions we were making when we were evaluating players went from at the most maybe $1 or $2 million players to a flock of $10 million players. And it was just time to concentrate on the business.
I want to make one thing clear. On the varsity team, that includes juniors and seniors, right? Or is the varsity all seniors?
No, it's juniors and seniors. It could be sophomores too.
Okay, if they're really
now,
good.
What happened, some controversy on this. When my first year, 1982, there were 2 really good underclassmen football players in Newport. The ones I had as sophomores in '81, and the 81 freshman team. Those two classes were outstanding. When I went up to varsity, I might have had 3 seniors starting. The rest were my kids that were juniors. I brought the entire sophomore team up. I did away with sophomore football my first year at Newport. Some controversy because a couple of kids couldn't handle it and they quit. But it's the only way we could turn the program around. There weren't enough seniors to beat enough people. And my juniors were juniors, and they'd never played varsity football. So I brought the whole 10th grade team up, and there was some controversy. I had some parents that questioned it and all that. I said, I just don't think it's fair to put your kids out on the field on Friday night without a chance to win. And at least 3 of those 10th graders started for me. The next year we went back to the normal way. I had a 10th grade team, but I had to bring those kids up.
But then you got to coach some of them for 3 years, so that seems pretty cool because you got to know them really well.
Yeah. You can look at it 2 ways. They either had to play for me for 3 years, or I got to coach them. But yes, there were some great players. Great players.
Now you said you only did this as a volunteer and only took $1 a year.
Yeah, I didn't feel like I should be paid. I felt they'd take the money and do it for the other teachers, but I needed to have a salary to be insured.
Okay.
But pro football, as you know, is fairly lucrative. I don't make a lot of money, but I made enough money where I could volunteer. And
then you said something about you started the business after that, or?
No, I started the business in '77.
Okay.
I started at my.
And this is evaluating the players.
My last job in '76 with the Broncos, I had 2 roles. I was the offensive line coach, and I was the first director of pro scouting in the NFL. All the scouting prior to 1976, believe it or not, was college kids. And what we saw was that if one of your players got hurt early in the season, there was no list or evaluation of the best players that you could bring in that other teams had let go. And that's how I started, or why I started my business. And I did it after being the first pro scout with 2 jobs for the Denver Broncos in '76.
And how long did you do that job?
I was there just 1 year.
Oh, just 1 year.
Yeah.
So you didn't do anything after you stopped coaching the high school team in that field?
Oh, you mean after Newport?
Yeah.
Well, I still do my business. I'm still in it. My son runs it.
Still does the recruiting?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I just left Newport and went back to my business that I'd been in since '77. Maybe I didn't make that clear.
Okay.
I started the business in '77.
Okay.
And I coached at Newport from '79 through '85 seasons. First 3 with the sophomores. But that wasn't my profession, so to speak.
And
I will say this. I found out that coaching high school in 1982 compared to when I started in '57 was much more advanced. It took more time than I thought it would.
And why was that?
Basically, the advancement in filming. Then the high schools, and it's even more, they even have more of them now. A lot of high school coaches, football coaches, want their kids to just play football. I don't agree with that. I don't believe you can play football 12 months a year. Football practice is no fun. If anybody says it is, they're screwy. Baseball, I mean, you can go out and hit, and you can play on the beach, or basketball, you can shoot. All these other sports, swimming, you can go body surf, anything. Golf, they're fun. Tennis, they're all fun, but not football. Football practice is hard, and I don't believe kids can do it all year round. But even back when I came in, they have what they call these passing leagues, 7-on-7. You have all your receivers and your backs and your quarterback play against each other. There's nobody rushing, there's no linemen. And so you have those. Weight training has become an art. When I was at USC, I kind of started our weight training program back there. When I was young, lifting weights was supposed to be bad for you. But so you had weight training, and you had these passing leagues, and if you didn't train your kids year-round, at least lifting weights, even my basketball and football and baseball players and track players, I encouraged them to go out for other sports, but they had to come in the weight room at 7 in the morning and lift. Otherwise, you're not strong enough to play high school football. The physical conditioning, the size of the players. In 1951, I took Monrovia to the CIF finals. I went 28-1 at Monrovia, and I had 2 linemen over 200 pounds. Now, my God, you'll see high school kids, the linemen weigh 300, some of them. So it's just the sport has grown, and it's just much more time consuming. And my business goes from August, when they were start the preseason games in the NFL, through the Super Bowl, so I don't have to work all year. But in August, it's a very busy time for me because I'm looking at all the players that might get cut and be available for this list in case you get a guy hurt. So the key to me coaching Newport was to have assistants that could handle my kids in the summer. And I was lucky. I didn't have any professionals. I had kids that had played at Newport, and they knew Newport kids. They knew when they wanted to go surfing. You know, you can't tell them not to surf, for God's sakes, if they live in Newport. Yeah. But they knew the kids. They had grown up here, and they had played at Newport. And I had about 4 ex-Newport players that I couldn't have coached without them. They were fabulous.
What's the name of your business?
The line coach was Mike Ashen.
No, the name of your business.
Oh, my business is called Pro Scout Inc.
Pro Scout King.
One word. I frankly wish I had named it something different, but I incorporated it so they couldn't steal my ideas. But it's called Pro Scout Inc.
Oh, Inc. Okay.
Yeah, it is incorporated.
All right. So you're still active with that, and your son is running?
Son's running it. I just do linemen now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then so you lived in Newport Shores. When did you move here? And was there somewhere in between there?
I bought the 2 houses next to me in the Shores. Do you remember back when Irvine Company had to make their leased land available to the how they decided? Remember, there was a big controversy. Yeah. Well, Signal Landmark was the company that owned the Shores, and we got a good deal. I think we could buy our lots for $60,000, and I think the Irvine ones might have been a little bit more expensive. So I had 3 houses there. So I bought all 3, and I sold them in '85.
Okay, and then where did you go?
I kind of alternated between here. You know what? I must have sold them in '89. I think I'm off 4 years there because I've been in and out of here since '89.
Okay.
I spent a couple of years at a golf course, the Nicholas Golf Course called Bear Creek out in Marietta.
Okay.
And I had a small place here. I had a studio here for a while. So I had 2 places. I was a pretty avid golfer at that time, and I don't know if you're a golfer. Bear Creek is the best course in Southern California, the toughest course at least. But it's situated out there in Marietta, and it was private and all that. And it was. And so, a lot of people have their second golf places in the desert, in Palm Desert. Well, Bear Creek was a better course, and it's half as far. So that's why I went out there for a couple of years.
But then you've had places here, and
I had 2 places.
Okay,
yeah.
So, and you said you lived in one of the larger units until recently.
Yeah, well, when I first did, and then I lived in the larger unit. Shoot, I can't remember now, to tell you the truth, but maybe 5 years.
Okay.
And then maybe 6. And just moved to this one like 6 weeks ago.
So are you by yourself now, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was the reason I moved.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm not divorced, but I'm separated.
Okay. How many kids did you have then?
3.
Okay.
Girl, boy.
2 girls and a boy. And so one of your daughters is, you said?
One of them lives in Marietta. She's 65.
Okay.
The second one, that's Vicky.
Okay.
V-I-C-K-I. Jackie, J-A-C-Q-U-I, now Celsi, went to USC and lives in, Vicky had 1 son. Jackie lives in Elk Grove. She had 3 kids, boy, girl, boy. No, boy, girl, girl.
And where does your son live?
And my son now lives in Park City, and he goes girl, girl, boy.
Okay.
So I've got 7 grandkids and 1 great-granddaughter.
And they come out and visit you, I hope?
They do. They do. My son will be here. Jackie and one of her daughters was down here 2 weeks ago, or 3. Whenever I moved in here, help me move in and all that. And then my son will be here. He still comes back to Newport. He's still got all his buddies here and all that. He'll be down here in second week of June.
So what do you like about living in the Bay Club?
I think for me, when you get to be a certain age, probably a number one thing, I've been a lucky guy. Only problems medically I've had are orthopedic, arthritis. I've had 4 hip replacements, a knee, blah, blah, blah. I've never had anything harder, prostrate or bladder, anything. But if you got anything, the beauty of the Bay Club, you call security, you're in Hogue in 5 minutes.
Okay.
So the convenience of that, I have never been a culinary person. I am the worst cook in the world. And because this place is part hotel, we have pretty darn good room service. And I don't, they've changed the menu. I can't say I'm happy with some of the changes. They took away a 12-piece bucket of chicken that I loved. And they did keep their power burger. But the food here is pretty darn good if you don't want to cook.
And then it's easy to get around because...
Yeah, and I now ride my bike almost everywhere. And so, you know, I got this is an electric, of course, now, but you know, you're flat, and I go up the hill to Fashion Island.
Does that fit in the elevator?
Yeah, it's a little heavy. I'm getting a new one next. I've got one. I got one on order. It's lighter. This one's heavy. Yeah. But yeah, barely fits in the elevator, but I'm getting a little smaller version of it.
Do you keep a boat here at all?
No. I
have a friend with a boat here.
Yeah, I love to sail, but I just rent.
So you know, those are some of the boats you've had, I guess, the ones on the wall.
Those the plaques. The blue one's my Snipe hull, and the other one is a hull of PC-10, which was owned by my uncles and my dad and his 2 brothers, and they won a lot of championships here before the war.
Okay.
They were Pacific Coast champion 8 times, from like 32 through 40.
So what'd you do with the Snipe?
Gave it to my sister.
Okay.
And she sold it, but I'm not sure to who. She ended up in Hawaii and was she maintained sailing. Pretty hard to be a sailor and play football and coach football. You don't have enough time. But she became she lived in Maui for 55 years. She died 5 years ago.
Do they have social activities here for residents as well, or?
Yeah, I don't join them. I'm not antisocial.
Okay.
I don't want to say this right. There aren't a lot of athletic people that live here.
Yeah.
I don't have much in common with them, I guess, or vice versa. Not that they're right or I'm wrong. I'm a football guy, and I'm a sports guy, and but they every once in a while they have a mixer I go to, and the people here are great. Yeah, but I don't know many of them. I really don't. I've been in and out of here for what, over 20 years. And I could probably name on one hand the people I know.
Do you keep in contact with many of your former kids on your teams?
I do, and that's the best part of being a coach, I think. From Monrovia's 57, my first team, to my last team was at Denver Broncos, and especially the USC players. Just had lunch last Friday with one of the best I ever coached at USC. And then Newport kids had a big old reunion for me last spring. It was fabulous. And then best player I ever coached was a linebacker from the 49ers named Dave Wilcox. And in the other room there's a picture when he went in the Hall of Fame. When a pro football player gets into Canton, the Hall of Fame, he has somebody present him. And my old linebacker had me present him, which is about as big an honor as an assistant coach can get. But yeah, that I enjoy that.
Was
the only
so
bad
Dave
part
Wilcox
about
was a local. He was a local one from Newport Harbor.
Oh, I see them all the time.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I used to know John Wilcox. I don't know if it's related to that family or.
Who?
There was a John Wilcox went to Harbor back in the 70s. I don't know if it's the same family or not, but.
Did you say Bazakis?
No, John Wilcox.
Oh, Wilcox. That's no relation then.
Yeah.
This Wilcox is from Oregon.
Okay.
Yeah, he's from Oregon.
Okay.
You know, it does, and I really love Newport. I mean, you think about what I do for a living. It's like 7 months of film work, which I could do anywhere. So if I'd have been smart, tax-wise, I'd have worked 6 months or those months in Nevada or Arizona even, and then lived here the other. But I just have always loved Newport. I can still catch fish in the bay. I'm not sure I would eat them, but I got a white sea bass 2 years ago that I ate. And of course, you can't keep many, and most of the halibut, what is it, 22 or 24 inches now.
You ate it, and they're still here, so that's good.
Yeah, there aren't many that big anymore.
I used to dig up clams on the beach when I was a kid.
Yeah,
and ate those.
but I still loved fish in Newport. Same places I used to catch them when I was a kid.
Do you go out and do any deep sea fishing at all?
Not out of here, boy, but talk about great days. When I lived here in the early 60s, the albacore, do you remember when the albacore used to come through? You'd catch them on a 12-mile bank. Now they don't come in. They don't come within 50 miles of this coast. I've asked people, maritime people, and first of all, albacore like 62 or so degree water, I guess, and the water's warm. But obviously, whatever bait they're chasing doesn't come in. The closest they come, I hear, to the coast. Well, San Diego, you can catch them maybe 50 miles out, but Half Moon Bay, before they make their, they swim around the Pacific, the albacore do, the longfin tuna, they come within about 20 miles of Half Moon Bay. But if you've ever fished out of Half Moon Bay, that is a different ocean than here. So when I deep sea fished, I caught a whole bunch of yellowtail 2 summers ago. So we go out of San Diego, but mainly I had a timeshare in Cabo for about 20 years, and I had my own skipper down there, and that's the main place. And then until about 5 years ago, I would go to Hawaii at least twice a year. But the best fishing over there at Kona on the Big Island kind of got fished out. Your most luck I've had deep sea fishing is Cabo.
So do you still attend a lot of the games at Newport Harbor?
Yeah, they just finished like a 6-game schedule. I don't know if fans were allowed, but up till I'd go to a lot of them.
Maybe this fall you get to go to some more.
Just a fan, and I love high school football, and
So any last comments you'd like to make that you think we should know?
No, I got one that I'm asked about coaching. And they say, well, where did you enjoy coaching the most? And because I was lucky, I coached at all levels: high school, junior college, and major college, of course, at USC. We won a national championship in '62. And then I was 7 years coaching in the NFL, and a total of 10 in high school. And somebody asked me that question, and I said, I guess I would say the most rewarding, and this surprised people, was a tie between high school and the pros. And they said, well, my God, why would that be? I said, for different reasons. If you know what you're doing and your players buy into it, they're easy to coach. The high school kids, whether they want to admit it or not, want to date the good-looking cheerleader or song leader. And if they win, they're going to do that. The pros obviously want to make more money. And if you teach them how to play well, they'll make more money. College, there's too many distractions. You know, they're getting married, they got this and that. Now, I enjoyed college, don't get me wrong. But as far as if you approach coaching as teaching, the high school and pro players, believe it or not, are the easiest to teach. Because their motivation is there. And there's just so much going on when a kid's in college that you don't have his full attention.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure talking to you today.
Okay, well, I want to leave you with this when he gets off campus.
Okay, all right.